Welcome to the North Grown podcast, where we work to preserve native wisdom before it dies out and to share that wisdom with the world. Through in-depth interviews and enlightening discussions, we will uncover the profound teachings, sacred rituals, and transformative experiences that have been given to us by nature. Our fascinating guests share their journeys, offering invaluable insight into the shamanic path and the methods used to access higher consciousness. Together we will bring back ancient practices and the relevance they hold in our modern lives. Enjoy. Today I had the honor of talking to my friend Mr. Torgeir Skancke. Torgeir was captured by the fascination of nature in his teens. He has dedicated his life to understand the intricate connectedness and the wisdom that it has to share. His recent book, The Story of the Owls, has received a wide array of positive reviews from his readers and his peers. At first glance, the book looks like an invitation to learn about the sophisticated and mystical birds. But with Torgeir's deeper understanding and intimate relationship to both the owl and the forest, he puts his pen to their cry for attention. The owl whispers to him that the forest is suffering, the natural laws that is life affirmative has been broken by us, and what is threatening their existence is also threatening ours. Okay. Hello everyone. We are now fortunate to have the guest Torgeir Skancke, who's joining us today. He recently wrote or published this book. In Norwegian it's called Uglenes Tale, which I guess in English would be the tales or the voice of the owl.
Yes, something like that.
Something like that. Yes. We have a lot of things that we can talk about, but what I find really interesting about this, and I think you told me that as well, is that you're writing about the lives of the owl. But behind the story of the owl is the story of the natural crisis, the climate crisis, and the crisis of nature. We will get to that. We will get to talking about this book in a little bit more detail. But to kind of, the backdrop, which is Torgeir, like how does anyone come up with the idea of writing a book of this size about the owl?
Well, it was a combination of I had the meeting with the publisher, and originally I wanted to write a book about what we call nature crisis, at least in Norway, because everybody knows the climate crisis, but not so many people know about nature crisis. Also, there are lots of species going fastly down.
There is a difference.
The amount of the biodiversity in the world and all over different countries, also Norway, is going that decreases fast. But so that was my idea. But in a discussion with publisher, they, won't you write something more positive, not so negative thing? Then I'll talk to people. They are similar to us. They have similar faces, and they have this mystical reputation. So lots of people are very fascinated by owls. And then, I can use owls to talk to the humans about their lives, but also about the condition of the world, nature. So it was a combination of my idea and the publisher, my editor.
But was to talk specifically about the natural crisis, was that too premature? Was it too early, or was it too a dramatic subject? Was that the reason why they didn't want you to write like a pure nature crisis book.
Yes, because they are very concerned. They have to think about is this good enough in the market. They have to know that the book will sell enough copies, because people here in Norway don't read books as much as before. So it was and the world crisis doesn't sell so much in their experience. So but to wrap it in gift paper like the owls, then it's much better. So it's also perhaps a bit early, not in the meaning that the natural crisis it's in my opinion it's we have come very far. It's a very serious situation, but in people's minds, it's not so. They're not so familiar with that word, because climate, as I said, it's very well known, but also that the nature collapses in a way. The ecosystems and the species and the amount of birds, insects, plants, it's going fastly down. And the main reason, at least here in Scandinavia, is that we destroy nature through logging, through building cities, highways, industrial areas, all such things. Even what they call the green shift, is that English word? Green shift, the green, with wind farms and over so huge areas. So that's also a lot of birds, for instance, they struggle. So that's in a very short description of nature or natural crisis, nature crisis.
The background for this book, and you talk about it in the book as well. You start the book, actually, if I remember correctly, about talking about your love for this particular types of birds that came in your teens, if I remember. Tell us a little bit about, because I often find that, especially for people that have a deep relationship with nature, and I think that that's important to point here, is that you're not only interested in birds, you're very much interested in nature as a whole.
Yes.
I usually find that for people like us that are interested, and you are particularly knowledgeable on this subject, it happens in the childhood years or the teen years.
Yes.
How did you find nature, or how did nature find you?
I think that for me, as a lot of other people, they either it's about their parents, or for me it was 3 other boys in school. I was about 11, 12 years, I think, and I don't know, suddenly we became very fond of birds, interested in birds, and at a very nerdic level, very, very, very interested. And we had competition in remembering the Latin name of the birds, and observe the highest number of birds, and so that was the start. But then, just after, I very, very early started to spend the night out in the woods. At first together with my companions, and then my friends, and then alone. And that, I think that must have been the start, because then I started to getting in contact with nature, with the night, with the stars, with all the mystical sounds in the wood, and of course a little bit afraid, but not so very long. Just after a year or two, I didn't feel I wasn't scared of the darkness anymore. It was just exciting, very exciting, and a kind of a love and a feeling of this is a mystery. And then I felt this connection to all the animals, the trees, everything. So then I was just bound to nature. All that time. So
And your relationship, it started then and it stayed like that. Like that wasn't only the beginning. That's how it's been since then.
Yeah. A very strong feeling, and I also at the same time, I got also an interest for two other things. One thing was indigenous people around the world. I felt like it's very difficult to describe, just a kind of longing or this is me, perhaps. But of course, I grew up as a white man white boy in Norway, Scandinavia. But I read lots of books about indigenous people around the world, and what I read, it gave a meaning. I felt this connection to it, and also at the same time, 10, 11, 12 years, I got also an interest for what can I call it? Ghosts and mystical things. Of course, it was exciting, but a little. I got more, but it was a certain feeling that it's something there that I can't see in the around you, and that feeling has just continue growing. So perhaps three interests in one.
And so going further, what happened with how did the owl appear? Because now you started talking about you and your friends became interested in birds, and then there was the relationship with nature. Is owl something that you chose now for the book, or is that also something that you've had a particular interest in?
I think that
since that
that's a difficult question, because there are several species that I am very fond of, that I'm very have a fascination for it. For instance, owls. But the owls are, of course, fascinating. But I don't want to take a single species and say that's a holy species, because all the environment, the whole ecosystem is so important, and they fit together so perfect, from the smallest species to the biggest ones. But the owls, they can, in my opinion, communicate if you're going to tell somebody about that you have a message, you have something you want to say, then of course you can and you are going to write about it, or hold a speech, or write an article or book or something. Then you can of course you can make the insects tell that story. But I wanted to use, in a way, the owls to tell that story, because I know that for instance, I sell a lot of pictures. People are very interested in owls. So that's the kind of pictures I sell the most. So, okay, I can use the owls because they have so strong impact on people. But of course, I am when I meet owls, out in the woods. For instance, the great gray owl, it's more than how tall in inches, I don't know, but it's 60 centimeters.
Mm-hmm.
Huge owl. When you meet it, I found a nest this summer, and it's very rare in my area, and it was totally ecstatic.
Yeah.
A great experience. And when the great gray owl, which also is the species on the cover of the book, when you meet it in the wood, you will never be the same. You're so struck because it's not very. It won't immediately fly away. It's very concerned about hunting mice.
Yeah.
Sitting very calmly in a tree, and not very scared of people. So you can stand there watching it. Of course, not too close, because lots of people are very interested in that certain owl and want to take pictures. But you can watch it, and it looks like a kind of a little man standing with these staring eyes.
Yeah.
But also the rest of in Norway we have 10 species of owls, from the smallest one, the pygmy owl, little 15 centimeters. They are very fascinating creatures, all of them. And the closer you get, and the more insight you get in their family life, their how they breed, how they raise their chickens, you'll be more and more the bound to the owls will be very strong. There is I think she's American author, Jennifer Ackerman, who has written a fantastic book about owls, which I read before I write my book. But that book, her book is very, it's much about scientific new science about owls. Very interesting. But so yeah. Very exciting birds anyway.
So and I think I think that, and obviously we're talking about a relationship with nature, and we spoke a little bit about, before we started the podcast, about the definition of being, spiritual. But at the bottom, or at the foundation of all of these definitions that we use today about whether or not we're spiritual or not, but at the foundation of it all is the relationship to nature. Like you can't really have one without the other. If and the relationship to nature is kind of like the primary factor to develop all of the other things. So on how you see the world. Do you see that the tree is something that's alive and has their own spirit in a way, or do you just see it as building materials? A lot of that comes back to the relationship to nature as a whole. And if you have a relationship to nature as a whole, you will not only acknowledge the tree, but also the birds sitting in the tree, and the insects around the tree, and the soil that the tree is in. And like what? Because the owls will be part of the owls is basically the book, and a great interest that you have, but the relationship that you have to nature. So what is it that you found in nature that made you stick to it for so long? Because it's, as I understand, it's been like a really, not only a big part of your life, but a very important part. You also, I think you also start the book in that way, that once you enter nature, you find peace.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, that's lots of people have tried to describe that certain experience.
Yeah.
But when you go into nature, you find peace, or relaxed, or restitution. But I've always had that feeling that there are, in nature especially, there are something that I can't see, but I feel it. And for the longer time that I stay outdoors, or the more untouched the nature is, kind of wilderness that we loses every day. So in Norway, known for its beautiful nature, for instance, there are the amount of wilderness. In the southern part of Norway, we are just 5% of the total area is qualified wilderness. That's dramatic. But anyway, so I often seek those more or less untouched places, or something similar. But also the woods in my hometown, just outside my hometown, or where the trees are really old, small spots, which has not been logged for 150 years perhaps. And then I get this feeling of there are a kind of energy around the trees and around the rocks and the plants, and the sound of the wind in the trees. So I know that that's a kind of experience that binds people together all over the world, who looks at nature in the same way. And to find that depth in nature, you have to be a bit sensitive, I guess. So I think that sensitive people who who can use their imagination, or use their intuition, they will faster get into that feeling. But everybody can feel relaxed, or feel restitution in nature. That's for everybody. But it's I think that people often struggle to describe why is it so. And I'm very open for any explanation. What works for you that's your truth. If you are a Christian, or if you are a biologist or something. But for me, that the best word, one of the best words, I can call me a spiritual man or something. I have this spiritual way of understanding life. So in that way, I see that everything in nature is living. Everything is living, and that everything has a soul, or has an energy. And in the same way, looking at nature as indigenous people always have had. But the problem with this explanation is that if you tell this to politicians or engineers or something that want to, here we're going to build 300 houses, expand the city, they will laugh at you. Then you're a tree hugger and a hippie. So then I have to use other words, because I've also had this environmental engagement. You have to learn the scientific expressions and the language. But the good thing is that when an area, a location in nature, even if it's wetlands or the woods or something, that if it's a place with high biodiversity, it's often also have this kind of high vibration energy. So you don't have to talk about the energy to other people, but if you feel it's good enough. But it's even more important to conserve that area. I think.
Yeah.
So that's a part of the Earth's immune system.
Right.
Yes. That I feel very strong that it is like that. That we have to conserve what we have left of untouched nature, especially because it plays a role to make the whole Earth, the ecosystems, to make them be in a healthy condition.
Yeah.
But back to the questions you asked me, I often talk me far out on the,
That's what
the
we
edge.
do.
But that's the big mystery.
Yeah.
What is it really about?
Yeah. You just know that there's something there.
Perhaps you can't explain it.
Yeah.
You can't explain it, but it just is the truth for me and for a lot of other people.
Yeah. And the truth, in the sense, I guess, not to put words in your mouth, but if I were to share my own, it is that there is a well, at the surface we might say that there is a calming effect in being present in nature. Like you can come from the stress of the city, work, blah blah blah, and then you go into nature, and then suddenly there is a sense of calmness.
Yeah.
That might be how we would, address it or title it at the top level, but at the bottom or at the more foundational level, I would say that there is a healing effect,
yes,
which results
definitely
in the calming effect.
Yes.
Is it still like that for you when you go into nature now? Is it still that you feel purification, healing?
Yes. Of course. And now I'm also addicted to it. So I need
you need a couple of days.
If I can choose, I have to be outdoors at least one time a day.
Yeah.
But it's not always been like that, because if you have as many others I have struggled in my life, and then when I struggled the most, I exercised, running or bicycling or something, or just spent time in the woods. And when I came back, I felt as far down as before I went out. So then it's but that. So I'm very. I've often said that there are no simple some simple solution for everything. That because there are a lot of people wanting to sell you something, selling a book. This you have to read this. That's the way you have to live your life. This is the what do you call it? This is I have the truth. If you do this, you'll become a happy person. I don't believe in that, because every person have its own way, and you have to walk that way. You have to go through your struggling, and hopefully you will get out stronger and wiser. But there are no simple solution. Just participating that lesson, or one direction, one or the other way. So what I'm trying to explain that is that there were some years in my life that I didn't feel very healed after being in nature, but because my problems or the situation was so severe. But after some years, but still I continued to go outside and walk in the woods and sitting down, spending my nights out. But after some years, I could better get into that feeling again. So yeah.
There's also did you, because you obviously have, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, that you also have a viewpoint of, well, you have the animism or the shamanic viewpoint of the world, and there is maybe important to separate that looking at the world that way does not mean that one is a shaman or the other thing. It's just that you see the world as the indigenous people have always done, which we are also a part. I mean, going far enough back, we all came from nature. We all used to live in nature. All of our ancestors basically knew this before they were forced to believe something else.
Yes.
But
for instance, the Viking culture, which is very popular, and they had a very what can you call it? A very shamanistic culture. Among the Celtic culture. Celtic. As well.
Yeah, they even had the Yule, which we now call Yule, or in English Christmas.
Yes.
Came from that. But the spiritual or the shamanic part of that's been part of your journey as well. It says you've traveled, and you still listen to people that carry that kind of knowledge. Why is that important to you, first and foremost?
Well, it's just, I guess it's like nature. I just feel dragged into it. I feel pulled towards it. So it's kind of embarrassing explanation, but I was also that little guy watching cowboy movies, and also, of course, I'm the Indian in that battle. It was bow and arrow. It wasn't a question, so I can't explain it. And then when I was 20, I think 20 years old. Then I was studying photography because I want to be an artist. I was very fond of drawing, painting, but I was also fond of photography, and that I thought that's perhaps a more what do you call it? More better education to be a photographer, but easier to earn money perhaps than visual artist. But then during that time, I noticed a little advertisement in a paper in Oslo, lessons in shamanic lessons or something, shamanic course or something. So, I have to go there. I've never read something about that before. That was in 1990. So it's 34 years ago. That was the first time in Norway that you can learn something about shamanism. And it was a guy called Ailo Gaup, which I guess all Norwegians, at least at my age, I'm 56, that met shamanism in a way some years ago. They have been to his drum circles. But unfortunately he died some years ago. But now he's a legend in Norway. And he started that kind of, it was called a kind of new shamanism. He's originally from Sápmi. He grew up in southern Norway, and by accident nearby my hometown in southern part of Norway, which is ethnical Norwegian, not Sami area.
Yeah.
And like a lot of other Sami people, he grew up with a kind of it's perhaps not anger. I don't really know, but it was very important to him to find back to his roots. And he was also a journalist and an author and write books. He wrote novels, and he was a very he made such impression on the surroundings. He was very had this very he was very authentic, and that was the start. So I joined his circles for a couple of years, and we had also a visit from America, from medicine people. I can't remember. There was an Indian called Beautiful Painted Arrow. I think it was he visited Oslo, and he arranged together with Ailo, I think, a long dance in the woods outside Oslo. We danced whole night to try to get visions. And later on, I continued to live my normal life and tried to get work as a photographer. I got a job as a journalist and photographer in a hunting and fishing magazine at that time, where I have worked for many years. But later on, I joined other courses.
Yeah.
You said that?
Yeah.
Courses. For instance, Eirik Myrhaug is also a well-known Nuaid shaman, Sami shaman in Norway, and other people. Yeah. So to try to find back to my own natural ability to I think that I've always been very curious about training my own what do you call it, vision seeking capacity, or to see through the veils.
Yeah.
So I've always been, because I know that's something I can do.
Yeah.
but you have to train it and let it be a part of your daily way of living. So
and it's an important point too that that the primary focus, or maybe the primary steps at least, should be focusing on oneself with the tools.
Yeah.
Learning the tools. And not all tools are equally effective on everyone. It's like you said earlier, some people go into nature and some people have very good effect of the drum or the dancing, or it can be plant medicine, it can be anything. But to find the tools that work well for you and then starting by making them work for you, I think is key. Like, not jumping ahead and thinking that I'm going to learn these things so that I can heal other people. It's first and foremost like learning the tools for self-healing, which brings us back, like we mentioned earlier, which is also a great reason to go into nature. It's for your own personal healing. Are those teachings still part of you? Life and are they still incorporated?
Yes, I guess so.
Yeah.
I like to believe that it's so. But also it's also a kind of combination of all you have experienced in your life, all the pain and all the happiness, and all the little by little you learn to be how it is like to be you, and to find back to myself. But that's a combination of course that interest for nature and spirituality is one part of it, but also the main part is learning to see or analyze yourself when you're struggling. Okay, so these are my problems. How can I manage to go through them without, I won't say giving up, because everybody has had a period in their life, I guess, when they want to give up. But to still be alive and still feeling a love for yourself, because that's very important. I think that, in my opinion, that's one of the most important issues for everybody, is the learning to love yourself. And we used to say that, everybody they are so egoistic, they are only concerned about themselves. But I don't think that's true, because the main reason that people want to have power and want to push other people down, because their inner self doesn't love itself enough. If you love yourself in a really honest way, you don't have to use your you don't have to use your fists or you don't have to own so much. You don't have to steal from others, because you have enough. So that's very important to be able to hold your energy, or to be in your own, to be a part of the power that exists all around, this is difficult to find the right words, but I guess that you understand. It's to hold your power, or to be a part of the stream and feel the love that goes through everything, and that you deserve something of this power or energy. You're born with it, and you don't have to fight other people. You won't get more energy if you fight others. You lose an energy. So I guess that's about happiness. So if you want to be happy, I don't have a very short receipt about that, but it's about also trying to exercising, getting in balance with the surroundings, with the people around you, and yourself. And then you have to work and exercise in be a part of this energy, finding peace with it, finding peace with, that's work. You have to work through it. It's not easy for anyone, but I guess I like to believe that I've been better in finding peace with myself as I'm getting older. Yeah, I don't know if I've managed to describe this good enough. But this is not about who you say you are. If you have a drum, if you have different kinds of tools, It's just about how you are, and it's a never-ending exercise. At least for me, it's like that. Meditation, everyday meditation. But that's a good tool. Meditation is always a good tool. Breathing.
Yeah.
Trying to walk with the light. So easy said, so difficult to live.
Yeah, and I guess that, you know, such a big part of all of the healing rituals or healing tools are exactly about getting past your own, you know. It's the dog. She sees us and she wants to join.
Yes.
It's about getting past the suffering part of the ego. That's keeping numbers on what you have or what you don't have. Which is why so many of the healing practices are focused around the state of trance. It's because in a state of trance, the ego takes a break, and you can acquire deeper insights and understanding, which is important because it helps you contextualize. But what I think is even more important is the feeling of being in trance. Because once you come out of a trance experience, your body remembers the experience, and your mind remembers how the body felt. It's like if you sit next to a river, or like you said, when you go into the old growth forest and you just sit and you hear the birds and you hear the wind in the trees. That's also a trance experience.
Yes.
That also dissolves time and space, and suddenly, the sun has gone down and you're gone, and or hours have passed, and the feeling that the body has then is the healing state. I believe that's where all of the stress and the worry just it softens up to the point where you can maybe help to dissolve it. That also happens with the drum. That also happens in different breathing techniques. It revolves a lot around getting into the trance state, because in the trance state, I usually say that the ego is kind of like the captain steering the ship. It has to know left from right, and it has to know, red light, green light, yellow light. It has to know these kind of things. But the compass and the guidance system is below deck. That's where the rudder is. It happens underneath, and that's also part of living your life from neck down instead of neck up, because neck up is problem solving, neck down is the compass. That's where you talked about the pull and push feeling of nature. Like once you get settled in, you can actually feel a pulling into parts of nature. But sometimes you can also feel like there's a little resistance, like a little pause. Maybe not today. Maybe we'll go another route, or maybe it's just not the right time. And it seems to me that that's also the state in which the worrying and the troubles of the ego gets a rest. And by getting a rest, I mean it gets a different perspective. It gets to see that, it can actually be different. I don't really have to focus on this thing because I can feel this way instead. And it's much more productive and much more healthy.
Very good explained.
Well, no, but it plays on the same. The plant medicines, the drums, the jaw harp, the river, are all gates into the trance state.
the problem that in the so-called civilized world we collect a huge amount of things that we believe are going to set us free, but instead they tie us up.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you in your explanation.
So getting back to nature, you touched on it briefly, but I think it would be really interesting to talk more about it, and that has to do with the conservation of wildlife or wild nature. Jumping in, what is the percentage in Norway, you said, that is still untouched nature or untouched in a sense, I guess, but what did you call it? Old? No.
Wilderness.
Yeah.
I just used that expression.
So what does that mean? Like when people go into nature in Norway, there are basically two types of forests. One is the one that have been planted and because it's been cut and planted, and the other one is the one that has had its own life cycle. Yeah. The trees have fallen when they are ready to fall. Yeah. It has been decayed over time, and then new trees comes up. Like, what is the difference between the two? Why do we still call both of them forest? Yeah,
in my opinion, just one of them are forest. Is forest because the other one we started here in Norway logging. What do you call when you cut all the trees down in a huge area? Started that way of logging, learned by the Germans about the Second World War. And that's 8 years ago, something, and then 84 years ago. And in Norway, about 70% of the forests are cut down in that way at least one time, and then you plant. We are very, or at least the forest industry, they are very happy with very proud of telling that. But we don't just cut down the trees; we plant new trees. But then the forests are much less diversity. Yeah. Afterwards. Yeah. And
which is why you see that there's like pine tree in an entire area, or there's birch tree in an entire area.
And on the ground, it's sometimes it's just dead. All the no green, no small plants, no insects. Just at least much less insects, plants, flowers, and then different kinds of birds and animals also. But so here in Norway, about 10% of the forest cover about, I think, 35% of the country in Norway. And we have a lot of mountains. But about the forest, which concerns me a lot, about 10% are what we called natural forests. With a very mixed. It has a, as you explained. Instead, you explained about it. It's the age of it's all ages, from the tiny small trees to the old trees, several hundred years old, dead trees, and a mix of different kinds of tree species. About 10% left. And when you talk about what do you call it, totally untouched wood, totally untouched, it's about 1% left in Norway.
And but it used, so 1%, it used to be, everything was like that.
Yeah, before the 15th century. Oh. Then the Norwegians started logging in a industrial kind of. They started to trade timber, and especially to England and other countries who had cut down their own woods. And then they searched specifically after the biggest trees, which several species are. They need such trees. Among owls, the Ural owl, slagugle, we call it in Norwegian. It's a very rare owl. There are just 30 to 40 owls left in Norway. Wow. Very, very rare. It needs forests in a total natural state. Anyway, so it's just tiny part of the forest left in its kind of state, and not everybody think that that's a problem. They take a plane from Oslo to another city in Norway and look down. Oh, Norway is green. It's forests and mountains But for species living there, the wild reindeer, for instance, caribou, it's deeply in trouble in Norway now. Norway is the last country in Europe with wild reindeer.
Really?
Yeah, and the reindeer living, they used to use the whole all the mountains in Norway, in southern part of Norway, they used as one living area. And now we have split it up into 30, 40 pieces because of roads, cabins, because of hydropower, huge hydropower, what do you call it?
Yeah, facilities where they use the...
Yeah, in the mountains, yes. Yeah. So-called green energy.
Yeah.
And they are so afraid of people. They're so shy. They can start running 1 kilometer distance from a country across skier, for instance, in the mountains during the winter. And the worst part is in the spring when they had to when they what do you call it, when the small cubs come to the world. But so that's just one example. So it's not a very good development it's not a very good way we treat the nature. Most Norwegians don't know anything about it. That was not very kind. Well, but a lot of people living in the cities don't know enough about this.
Yeah. And it also goes to the contrast of how I think Norway is viewed internationally, because many people go to Norway and they say the exact same thing. We're coming to Norway to see the wild nature, the mountains, the forest, oh my
fjords.
God, the fjords, it's so beautiful here, and the post
glaciers and lakes. But I could have talked for a long time about what's really going on in the ecosystems. It's not a good situation we have now. And similar to a lot of other countries.
And this goes down all the way down to the insect stage and up to the larger animals, like, for example, the reindeer.
Yeah. The last 4 years, that Norwegian scientists didn't start measuring the amount of insects until 4 years ago. That was when that was when the Germans, they had measured the amount of insects for 30 years at least. The last 30 years, I think that the flying insects in Germany had decreased with 75% or something. The last 4 years in Norway, the amount of insects had decreased 14% each year. So it's dramatic situation for the insects, not only for the bumblebee and the bees that people know. It's not only about what do you call it when they pollination. Yeah. It's not about only about pollination. That's the most known thing, because we are totally dependent on the insects that pollinate our food. Mm-hmm. But all the insects they are food for birds, animals, and extremely important for the ecosystem. Mm. And still, most people talk about climate change, and the climate change is that's one situation, one crisis we have to deal with. Mm. But for a large amount of species, it's about destroying nature. Mm. So those crises together, we have to see it in a whole. We have to not only because it's easiest to look upon the climate crisis, because that's something that companies can earn money. Mm. They can stop producing oil, but then they can produce wind farms instead. Mm. But also wind farms make damage on the ecosystems. Mm. So we can't save the ecosystems, the world, and ourselves unless we stop consuming so much that we do. Mm. Humanity needs to we can't only think further economic growth. We have to think degrowth. Mm. But it's not so popular talking about it because, how are companies making money then? Mm. Yeah. But we have to consume less.
Yeah. And I always found that to be a strange topic, because we talk about, how all the people around the world don't even have food. Mm. And yet I think there's like this shop just on the other side of the city that sells food that has gone past in Norway we have a date. We have 2 dates on most of our food. The one date says best before, which means that the bread, for example, will taste best before this given date, but it will be eatable until the second date. And there's a shop in the city that sells all the food that has gone past the best before date. And I think on a poster inside of the shop, it says that we throw away 170,000 bread. I'm not going to be very confident that it says every day, but it's at least every week. We produce so much stuff, especially food, that is never consumed. And the fact that not only is it not consumed, but it's not preserved in a way either and sent to people that might be in the need of it. So the production line is not there for us to get what we need. It's there so that we have a surplus and can do whatever we want. And those are 2 completely different things. And I oftentimes suspect that there is a hoarding instinct in us from the early days that we haven't addressed. Because I believe that at some point in our history, it was absolutely necessary to pick everything you could find, carry it if you could, and bring it to the next camp. It would. I can't see that wouldn't be a wise thing to do. Like if you found, or if you managed to kill another animal, or if you found berries or whatever, you would pick it with you and have it as the next meal. And you would always be scouting, looking for opportunities. I believe that this is maybe some of what we're doing now. We're picking up constantly, even though we are out of the we're out of the situation where that's necessary. That's not really necessary anymore. And so, living less is an opportunity that we have, but still we're producing based on our lust and our appetite, not on our basic needs.
So how to solve the environmental problems? Our government, our politicians, they seem to believe that only we find some new technical solutions, new advanced technical things, you can solve this huge problem and the crisis. But I don't believe in that, because it's not about only pollution. It's not, one thing is what we the pollution we create, but from factories, cars, and other things. But the other thing is the resources you need to produce the things. And the resources that we get from forests, from the sea, from mountains, and everywhere. The resource is not a good word. It's about ecosystems. Yeah. That's the way we destroy the ecosystems. It's all the overusing of. And I think that when did the mass production of cars start? Was it in Norway? I guess also after World War II, ordinary people started to be able to get a car. And before, I think that's perhaps the most negative thing that humanity has done to mass product cars. Before that, we have horses all around, helping us with transport, in the agricultural things. Horses were everywhere. Used much less resources. Was one of man's best friends. Yeah. Healthy to work with. Yeah. But that's just one of my thoughts about when did this start. Destruction of Earth. At least one thing, of course, are planes, and but it's no doubt about, in my opinion, that industrialization has been negative for the world for nature. But the politicians, they see it in another way. Yeah, they seem to know that that's the solution.
We can basically tie that together with this book, because mentioned this earlier as well, when and you actually told me this in a conversation, because I was fascinated by the book just as a book about owls. Like, this is a new topic for me, but as a person who is also really interested in nature and animals, this was fascinating. Also, the fact that I had met you, but then you said it's but it's also about the natural situation, the nature situation. It's about the nature crisis, seen through the eyes of the owl. The book kind of starts, or at least contains a little bit about your relationship to nature, but then it goes quite directly into the history of how we have treated nature. I knew before I read this, I knew that there was something called prize hunting. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that you can go out and if you shoot the biggest buck or the biggest moose, you'll get a prize. Or if you go to another country, maybe you shoot a lion, blah, 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 or a particular bird. But what you talk about in here, in one of the first chapters, is that it was systematically done.
Yes.
It wasn't just for what we call recreational hunting with prize. It was the government organ, or you can explain that better, went out, said everything must die. All the prey animals are now seen as competitors to man, including
the predators.
The predator animals are seen as competitors to man. So all of them must die, and you'll get paid if you do so. Like, what were they thinking when they did that?
The situation was that huntable game, like moose, deer, different kind of birds, hare. There was a very low number of those animals because it was free hunting at that time. That's 150 years ago or something. Then there was a biologist who came up with the idea that if we kill all the predators, then
they also hunt the moose.
Yeah. Then there will be more of the huntable, the what do you call it? You can hunt and you can eat them. More of those kinds of animals. So then they started a systematic campaign to kill such the owls. First and most the big predators: wolf, bear. Järv. What do you call that one? I know the English name, but I can't remember it right now. But and the lynx and the eagles, and also the biggest owl, the bubo, snowy owl also. And they killed thousands. It was educated special predator hunters. They had special equipment to kill them. They put bait on a stick and trap.
Yeah. Like the scissor trap that shuts.
Yeah. So in that way, they almost several species almost disappeared from Norway. For instance, bear, wolf, lynx, lot of the polar fox, little white one in the winter. And also this big great horn, not great horned owl, but I can show it.
Yeah, sure.
It is what's the English name? Because this owl lives, I think, around the world.
Okay, so hold it up next to your face.
Here? Yeah.
There you go.
It's a huge owl, and it's now very rare. In these, we are now situated in the southeast part of Norway, and the amount of the bubo has, I call it bubo in Latin, has decreased with over 90%, and it was a regular breeding bird around here.
Really?
Yeah.
And that is because of the systematic...
It started with hunting. But afterwards, it has been two factors which has been negative. The one factor is its prey. A lot of other species, a certain kind of rat, And also it takes middle sized prey, which has also been decreasing, and at last also these power lines and wind power areas. It doesn't manage to live in that kind of landscape. So in the future, well, for that certain owl, it's not a good situation at all. And the snowy owl is also now utryddet, vad heter det? Extincted from Norway. So to nearly extincted. But the snowy owl they use the whole polar or the mountain area around the world. Yeah. It's a common. I can't remember the word bestand. It's
it's part of the animals.
It's a common living area. Yeah. It's the whole around the northern part of the world. But they can move for long distances around the world. But in the Scandinavian or Fennoscandia, Finland, Norway, and Sweden, the snowy owl now is almost extincted.
Wow.
And that's because of the a little lemon, a little kind of it's also living around the world. It's an orange little short-tailed mouse. We call it lemming. Struggle a lot, and that's because of the climate changing. The winters are very unstable. So the lemmings, they struggle, and the snowy owl struggles together with the polar fox and other species. So, well, this wasn't very positive talking about, but
well, but that is what the book is about.
Yeah.
And it starts with what you say, starts maybe with the systematic effort to eradicate. And it wasn't, as I understood in the book, it wasn't just to kind of minimize the species a little bit. They had like a goal of eradication.
Yeah.
They wanted to eradicate all of the species.
Yes.
Now, in later days, and you mentioned the fact that Google is also building an enormous center here in our city, Skien.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's kind of like just a example of what's happening, because later in the book, you also, or at least as we've talked about, you also mentioned that it's not only the industries that are ruining for the animals, but it also that we are building out houses. And when we were building out houses, or when we were building out new buildings, roads has to be built, power lines has to be built. When people say, for example, we're just going to build 2 or 3 more cabins. It's like, no, it's 2 or 3 more cabins, and then there is the roads to the cabins, and then there is the water supply to the cabins, and then there's the total is way larger than just the area for the house or the cabin or the building itself. And so when you look at the total, the numbers don't really match up with how it is presented maybe when they take their plans to the city office to get an approval. Like the total is way higher. And that also has a big impact on nature, which again has a big impact on the species that are living there.
And the local politicians, they continue saying just a little bit more.
Just a little bit more.
little bit more, a little bit more. And they don't see the whole impact on the whole mountain area. For instance, for the wild reindeer.
Yeah.
They just think about their own little community.
Yeah.
And we need some more cabins to do tourists.
Yeah.
Now we have 5,000 in that community, and just a little bit more, because the wild reindeer, they have a lot of other areas, they say. But all the communities say the same thing. The politicians, they want to earn some money, of course, for their people wanting to build tourists ski destinations, destinations. But in the long term, the nature loses in that way. So it's not very positive or very. I'm not very optimistic if we continue living and make such decisions. We have to think of nature as our something we are totally dependent on, not something we just can use and earn money for the next generation. So, and there we can learn a lot about how the indigenous people traditionally lived, and looking at nature as something as Earth, as our mother, not just a nice kind of words, but in reality, it's reality. We have to. Mother Earth has not only resources, but she has all these diversity and ecosystems that we are totally dependent on. We can't live without it, but lots of people obviously believe that we can. But we see now that all the signs that Earth gives us, that we have to turn around. We have to make other choices. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of like we think that, well, we do like this and then a problem appears, but then we'll just make a solution that fixes the problem, and then a new problem appears, and then we'll just make a solution that fix. That's the same kind of logic that drives the pharmaceutical idea. You take a drug that has side effect, and then we're going to make a new drug that fixes the side effect, but then the other one has a side effect too, so we need a third one, and then we'll make a fourth one. It kind of just stacks upon itself. We'll make something that fixes the other thing that we made. And in the same sense, we're doing the same with nature. We're going to build something that will create a problem, but then we'll just build something that fixes that problem, but that creates a new problem, and then we'll just build something that fixes that problem, and then so it goes. I do really like also what you say when you use the word resources. No, not that we use the word resources, but what it actually is ecosystems. Yes. And by first glance, it's their ecosystem. Like when you go into the ground, you're messing with the ecosystem of the insects, the trees, the birds, the plants, and the animals. But in fact, it's our ecosystem as well, because we're all part of the same chain. It's all just one chain. It's not. It's not a horizontal thing. It's a linear thing. When you go in and you start messing with the ecosystems, and nothing is there by coincidence. That's the other thing. Everything developed by, everything developed because, as you said, Mother Earth and the creative life force allowed that thing to break free and manifest itself into creation. Every little single insect came out of the opportunity for it to exist, and then the next thing came out of their opportunity to exist, all the way up to us. And if it goes to the point where we pull the last plug and it comes to a halt, that might be game over for us, but nature will come back.
Yeah.
It always does.
Yes.
In our sense of time, it takes a long time, but it did come back after the dinosaurs, and it has always been. It's always in these cycles. I think the question is more whether or not we want to be a part of that or not. And this book obviously addresses that in a way that is both, there are numbers in here, there are factual numbers, there are consequences of it, and there's also a lot of news in there that, like you say yourself, I don't think the ordinary man and woman in Norway knows this, especially when you talk about what we think we have in terms of forest and nature.
Yes.
What do you think, rounding off a little bit now, and going towards an end? We've talked about spirituality, and we've talked about the relationship with nature, and we've talked about nature. Like this, there's a unity there.
Yeah.
What is the solution that you think would make people voluntarily slow down? Or now I'm leading you, because that was my way of looking at it, because I actually think that that's the solution, that people have to voluntarily want to slow down. But what do you think is a alternative or an example or a suggestion that could bring about a better, let's say you talked about it when they started to eradicate the predator animals. So what could be a solution in the next 100 years?
That's a difficult question. There was a very famous professor in philosophy in Norway, Arnenes. He was the founder of the deep, it wasn't a direction of philosophy, deep ecology, what's it called? Eco-philosophy. And he was a remarkable person. He was a big scientist, but he also talked a lot about love for nature. He built a very tiny cabin up in the mountains in Norway, and not to damage the small flowers that grew around his cabin. He walked from stone to stone, the last piece, and he said so nice things, and one of them is a kind of sentence. He said that he talked about much about simplicity, but also simple joy. In Norwegian, deep glede. So deeply kind of joy that we have to find, and we can find it everywhere. But he wrote about like children's playing. So we had to search for these simple and deep kind of joys that surrounds us, and reducing. And also he believed in, if we are going to save nature, we have to give people, to inspire people in loving nature, using nature, loving nature, and find joy. In Norwegian, naturglede. He talked a lot about these things. So he didn't want to use his finger to, you don't have to do that and that and that. So he believed that if we shared this joy and love for nature, people will learn how to treat nature better and the environment. I'm not quite sure if he succeeded, because people don't seem to follow these very nice way of thinking. But still, I am very fond of his philosophy.
Yeah.
Because I'm not quite sure if you can force people to not do this and that. Of course, you can make. I think we could make more laws that say what's allowed and not. But still, people will always want to earn money, and if a man buys a forest area and want to build a city or a road or something he would earn money on, he will always try to do that.
Yeah.
So that's a thing that makes me a bit pessimistic. If we have to, as I said earlier, we have to find another way of living as a society than always think that we are going to make economic growth. Because the earth doesn't follow us on this. There won't be enough resources, enough ecosystems. The ecosystems will collapse, and it has started in the ocean here, what we call the Oslo Fjord. A big fjord area outside here. The fish stocks has collapsed. A lot of species. So it's in one way we have to change our minds and how to understand that Earth and nature is we are totally bound to it. And the other way, we have to have more laws that are more radical, that stops us from destroying more. Well, that's in my opinion perhaps the two tools we can use. But if we will succeed, I don't know. And at last, I would also say that I'm very. When I was young, I was much more angry, much more, when you're young and radical, you wanted to have changes at once.
Yeah.
But in this polarized society, we have to also find peace, both with ourselves and with our enemies. So then I think that you have to do as Mahatma Gandhi, to live as you speak. Peace is the way. It doesn't matter if you talk about it, if you yell about others, write angry comments on Facebook to save the world. No, you have to do it in a peaceful way. Perhaps that it does it even more difficult, but we both have to change inside as well as outside, if you understand what I mean, at the same time. And I think that as spiritual beings, we can motivate the society or other people to change in that way. But the most important change lies inside every one of us. So the best way I can do an effort to perhaps it's big words, to save the world or save nature, is to be aware and focused myself, and try to live as I speak. So the biggest challenge is not changing other ones, but yourself.
I mean, it kind of perfectly comes back also, I think, what you just said to what we almost started this podcast with, which was, the different healing practices, which is all about what you talked about, the love, the self-love. Like if you feel, if you are in peace with yourself, the need for outer stimuli goes down, which is also directly correlated with what we purchase and what we buy. It's also an outer stimuli. It's also a way of trying to fill a hole. And so if humanity, if we can come to a place where we have self-love, and we and maybe also that we see something, I think that actually a part of it is to see that we are part of it. Like when we understand that we are part of the enormous diversity and mystery that is this planet, then maybe it becomes a little bit more interesting, and it becomes something that we see it as an extension of ourselves, or maybe the more factual or the more right way of looking at it is that we are an extension of it.
Yeah.
But I think that you're right, that it has to be a personal. I usually say, because I work in an industry that a strange industry to work in, but children that has not grown up in the best circumstances. And I hear politicians standing in front of cities, Cheyenne here is, 65,000 people. And in the States, in New York, you have millions. And you have politicians standing there talking and claiming that, they know how to lead 60,000 people. They don't know how to lead 60,000 people. It's impossible to lead 60,000 people. And so for a politician to say that they're going to guide us to a better society, I think is an absolute lie. I think that a great society, a healthy society, is built up by healthy families, which raises children that are healthy in every way, like in spiritual way, physical way, psychological way. I don't think that the health of a society stands on the shoulders of politicians, even though they claim to know what we need to do, or they claim to know that now we're going to do this, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is right, and this is the best way, and we have the best agenda, not the other parties. I do believe that a healthy society is built up, is the sum of healthy families, is the sum of people that take care of each other inside of the family. So there might be 60,000 people that, comes from 20,000 families. Or, I don't know the math, but it doesn't really matter. If those care about each other and teach their children about their self-worth and their connection to nature, I think that's how I think that's the way to a society that's healthy. Yeah. And part of the challenge there is something that we also touched about in this talk, is the loss of the elders, loss of the people that has kept the wisdom that went all the way back to when we used to live with nature, where we understood what nature was, and we understood the importance of taking what we need, not what we want. So our elders today are the same politicians that, that only that has a main cause of more industry, more building, more everything. But we need the wise elders. We need to change out the people that we listen to. I think so. And I believe that this book is actually a part of that, because it could have been a book of how to become millionaire or the best businessman or, you know, something like that. But it's actually a book about Mother Earth, our home, and the home that we share with these birds. It's, if they're struggling, we're probably struggling too.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's only published in Norwegian so far. I hope it'll be published also in English, but I don't know anything about that. I have to ask the publishers, plans and what they have planned for that book.
Yeah, really, really good. Okay, Torgeir, this was a talk about nature. It was a talk about our and your relationship to nature, and also about our fellow animals, the birds, and the other ones that are walking around that are in a situation that needs to be addressed. It's not the lightest topic, but it is an important one.
Yes, it is. So, and it's also our responsibility. I don't always succeed with that, but to speak in a way that people don't lose hope. So I try that when I hold speeches and speeches and write articles to also hold the hope high.
That's necessary. Okay, really good to talking with you. I will add some links to your website. It's in Norwegian, so it's sterke streker.
Sterkestreker.no, and also on Instagram. Frifant.
Frifant. We'll add the links.
Free soul.
Free soul. Okay, thank you so much, Torgeir. Nice talking to you.
Thank you very much for being here.
You're more than welcome. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.